What up, perps? Kid Copious back in effect. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. We're repping America, the center, and common sense. I got a pretty packed show today. We got to cover a lot of ground, so let's just kick it off. So before we get into the politics of the day, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what goes on in my head. I have 4 voices in my head. I have my voice that you hear, comes out of my mouth. I guess you understand voice. The second voice is my father, passed away a couple years ago. And, the lessons that he taught me, the ideals that he held on to, especially when it comes to being a patient teacher. That's something that, really resonates in my head at all times. I'm there to be of service. The other day I had great opportunities to be of service. I was testing a medical building, and there was a guy in a wheelchair, and he was struggling to get in the building, and I took him all the way up to the 4th floor, got him to the office that he was looking for, and then, when he was all done, somehow I ended back up on that floor. I think I was changing batteries or something like that. And, I helped him back down, and along the way, we ran into an elderly black lady who was kind of confused by where her car was, because the building's kind of odd. It's odd. It's been repurposed over the years. And I got her to her car, and, I know my dad was up there, and he said, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to wait for people to ask for help. You're supposed to put your hand out. That's who I am. I'm not one of these ultra right-wing people who disregard human decency. That's why the 4th voice in my head is the voice of Jesus. And not a Jesus that gives me an excuse to hate on people or to put people down or tell people that they're doing wrong. No, my voice of Jesus is the voice that tells me to love people, and to be the best human that I could be. The 3rd voice is my enemy. It's the voice that leads me astray. It's the voice that tells me it's okay if I get drunk because I had a bad day. It's the voice that tells me that, everything's going to fall apart and the world's going to collapse, that anxiety, that depression. So I try to not listen to that 3rd voice, People don't understand that about the people who are out on the streets, is that the voice, that 3rd voice, is so powerful. I see it with my own brother. I see it with the people on the streets. Drugs and alcohol ruin lives. They simply do. And to a lesser extent, that 3rd voice can also lead you down the route of gambling, where you're constantly chasing your losses and you're wasting money. But man, when that voice has to do with addiction, it is harder than people think. You can come up with, your brain is so powerful, you can come up with lots of excuses to continue your bad behavior, to justify it. And even worse, that voice silences the other voices, and that's what leads to denial. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of in politics right now. Both the right and the left are guilty of denying the truth. Denying the bad things about themselves. I'm firmly against most Republican platforms. Believe it or not, I am strong. My resolve against some Republican ways of thinking is stronger than my resolve against some ways of progressive thinking. But progressive Democrats are being replaced by leftists, by Marxists, by fascists, by people who are willing to, look what's going on right now. The left is literally committing wholesale extortion. If you're thinking about voting Republican, we'll attack the police. If you elect a Republican, we'll burn a city or two. And that's what we're seeing right now. I don't see a lot of that coming out of the right. Just here in Los Angeles, last weekend, I believe it was, there was a Hispanic female journalist out there. I don't care what side of the fence she was on. She was getting attacked by a bunch of men, a bunch of leftist goons. You can look it up. Leftist goons attack female journalists in Los Angeles. And you can hear in the back of these recordings, they're screaming, punch her, get her. A guy literally jumps on her back, knocks her to the ground, and they have her cornered up against the wall. And they're telling the world that the right is fascist, that the right is the totalitarians, whatever, however you would say that. It's the left. It's the left that is extorting this country and saying, if you don't do what we say, we're going to burn down a city. That is literally what they're saying. If you look back at a lot of the protests, and I can just already hear all these little lefty weasels out there, what about January 6th? January 6th was one moment that at least had a shred of justification. The other shit that you're doing, this stuff with ICE right now, we're going to get into that a little bit right now. The Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, details the massive underground fraud network behind Minneapolis's anti-ICE push. Yeah, they're not out there. They're not out there protesting ICE. They're not out there protesting in support of undocumented immigrants who are just trying to find the American dream. No, they are out there to distract. Like Todd says here, we had a massive fraud going on through Minneapolis, all through Minnesota, and suddenly it turned. It turned almost on a dime, and it became suddenly all about ICE, all about getting ICE out, and how horrible ICE was doing. Meanwhile, they're tracking massive amounts of fraud that could be going back to support people we don't want to be supporting. Terrorists around the world, Somalia, wherever. It's going to take them time. But the left is willing to mobilize. Oh, you want to look into our fraud? We'll burn your city down. It's coming from California because every day we're seeing more and more fraud being exposed in California. Now, I'm not going to say that the Trump administration is the one finding all this fraud. I know he likes to take credit for things. A lot of this is ongoing investigations. A lot of this has to do with the interaction between federal dollars and state responsibility. And look, I understand that. You know, but when you look at how many tens of thousands of illegal immigrants have been arrested across the country, where's the protest there? The only protests we're really seeing is Minnesota, Los Angeles, Chicago. What we're not hearing anything about is the fact that a centralist Democrat, Lori, up in San Francisco, is trying to be compassionate and realistic. He's up there doing the kind of work that I wish all Democrats would do. Okay? You can have your way of thinking, but at the same time, you need to do what's practical for the country, your city, whatever it is, your state. I mean, that's just it. You know, and I just want to end this with, you know, Trump administration, Donald Trump, your people, stop being such freaking assholes, okay? That post with Obama and Michelle as apes was flat out racist and stupid. Okay, I understand you want to make Trump out to be the Lion King. Well, next time you do something that fucking dumb, okay, try to not be so racist about it. The problem is that when Republicans are racist, xenophobic, and homophobic, and transphobic, all it does is push people towards the Democrats, away from the Republicans. Lots of people do not want to be involved with this far left shit. You would be surprised, but the actual numbers show that it is a small percentage of Americans who actually support the left, the far left, the destructive left, the AOCs, the Tlaibs, the Omars, the Bidens, people like that. People who are willing to waltz, Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, Gavi. Hey, Gavi, how you doing, buddy? I see you out there. But they want to ruin America for their ideals. That's what they want to do. But if you're going to keep pushing them that way, pushing them away from the Republican Party and conspiring with the Democrats to keep third parties out, what the hell do we have to do? So, stop it. That's my message. Hey, Donald, stop it. All right? Can I make that any clearer? I can't. You see, one of the problems we have and I mention this all the time, so it's just repeat. We live in echo chambers. Well, some of us do. I don't. I know I don't. I read both sides of the article. I go out of my way. It does my head in. But one of the things that was recently said was Don Lemon comes out and says that Nancy Pelosi told him that he'd be the, I'm making air quotes, face of the First Amendment after he was arrested. So now, if you live in an echo chamber, you think Don Lemon is the champion of the First Amendment for barging into that church. No, okay? The truth of the matter is you forfeit your First Amendment rights when you violate the First Amendment rights of other people. Don Lemon is the face of a hostile left. That's what he's the face of. They can show no respect. All they want to do is sow chaos to cover up the corruption in Minnesota. That's what they're doing. And they're doing it successfully. And that makes it really easy for the mainstream media to then jump right in. And then if anytime anybody looks at an article that's pointing this out, it's Fox News, it's really easy for these lefties to go, well, it's Fox News. It's faux news. Come on. We need to grow up, man. We have abandoned our children out there to just be raised by fucking TikTok and these people. And you wonder why so many young people are out there. Keep in mind, when you see older people out there, they're just trying to fill their time. And when you see what they would call fighting age males out there, they're just looking for trouble. Those are the truths. Truths are sometimes hard to take. I know. I had to face a lot of truths in my life. You want to hear another truth? 41% of California's job growth lately is people who are taking care of elderly family members. California has a program where they will pay you to take care of your elderly parents because it's cheaper than Medi-Cal paying for it. Okay, so that makes sense. That's cool. They consider that a job. It's not a job. It isn't. Okay, you are taking care of your parents. That's not a job. They are paying you. That's just unemployment. But they want to count it as job numbers. And while we're on the subject, yes, of course, a lot of people are defrauding that system. They're taking care of, parents who are here illegally and stuff like that. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care about that. I care about fraud. I don't really care if some kid that was born here in America became a naturalized citizen and is now taking care of his parents who happen to be illegal, receives money from California. I think we can afford that level of compassion. It's a tough job. My wife's doing it right now. That is one of the hardest things to do, is take care of elderly parents, all right? It's a dirty job. It's sometimes a thankless job. It's never ending. You don't get a vacation. We don't collect from the state of California because my wife goes over, we pay somebody that we know to go by, and we also have an agency that comes in because my mom had that insurance. So we get that break. But I know a lot of people out there aren't getting that break. And I don't know how they do it, man. I don't know how they do it. But to then consider that a job in terms of job numbers is disingenuous. It's fake. So 41% of California's job growth is made up. That's kind of frightening because that only leaves 59%. Not even 60% of the job growth being legitimate. While we're on California and Gabby, hey Gabby, what a bitch. Shouldn't even call him that because that's, this guy, man, he went out and he posed with a freight train to talk about, hey, we've got tracks getting ready to be laid. I'm thinking, I just was reading the comment section and most people were just like, this is freaking stupid. But one guy was like super enthusiastic about being able to travel from LA to San Francisco. But of course, he doesn't really know that it's Palmdale to Gilroy. And if you know anything about Palmdale, and now, look, Palmdale is a fine city, okay? But it is nowhere near Los Angeles. It is quite a ways away. It's on the other side of the mountains from LA. It is not the middle of LA. Going to the middle of San Francisco. It is going to end up in Gilroy, which is on the southern end of the bay up there. You're going to have to figure out how to get to this train station, because that's not going to be built yet, and that is going to be a tough one to connect LA to Palmdale. Ooh, that's a lot of mountain stuff to go through. But once you get to Gilroy, you're going to have to rent a car to go to San Francisco and backwards. Where's the I don't understand people's enthusiasm for this. I mean, okay, so the Super Bowl is going to be in San Francisco this year, right? Now, for a family of 4, you're probably going to lay out about $12,000. All right, right now, maybe, we can argue details. But if you lay out $12,000 for Super Bowl tickets, are you taking the train up there? Really? I mean, you could drive in the same amount of time, or you could just fly. If you've got the money to buy Super Bowl tickets, you're just going to buy a plane ticket and fly up there first class. Bing, bang, boom, you're done. Right? Who needs it? It doesn't even make sense to me. I do not understand. Do you think people are going to live in the middle of California and take the train to Palmdale or Gilroy so they can work in the city? I mean, even if that works, you still got issues. You still got issues, because if you work in San Francisco and you get dropped off in Gilroy, you're then going to have to take buses, trains, things like that to get there, or rent a car or leave a car up there. It doesn't make sense. And this is, again, where putting ideals above practicality is just effing stupid. All right. So a little quiz here. Who said if an illegal alien is found, they should pay a fine for sneaking in, pay all back taxes, and then are given conditions to remain, and then proudly proclaimed they will wait in line? Who said that? Well, you already figured out it's a trick question, right? You know, like, I'm trying to lead you down the route of saying Trump. It wasn't. It was Hillary Clinton when she ran against Obama back in like 2008. Everybody in government knows that illegal immigration is not fair. It is not the same as immigration. And as we've seen from the Biden administration, when you leave it just willy-nilly, it leads to a lot of bad stuff. Yeah. That's why Trump's administration is urging Gavin Newsom to honor ICE detainers for more than 33,000 criminals that are in California. And they have, since 2019, they have, since Gavin Newsom, little Gabby, oh, looky little Gabby, oh, is she upset? He has transferred over 12,000 people, murderers, rapists, and violent offenders, okay? They don't turn over lower crimes. And I do like what his office said. California law ensures violent offenders are held accountable while also ensuring that victims and witnesses, including victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, are not terrorized into silence by fear of deportation. Yeah, that's fine. I'm all for that. I don't think victims and witnesses should be deported. But you notice how they have to say terrorized. Look, if you don't want to worry about immigration enforcement in the United States, don't come here illegally. I really don't understand why we think that people who sneak into the country should be not afraid to be deported. Now, listen, if you were a victim or a witness to crime, okay, I think you should be put on like a fast track to citizenship, okay? Especially witnesses who provide information that actually lead to convictions. I believe that. But at the same time, we can't just make America a sanctuary country where, well, if you sneak in, you're here. Hi, let us give you some perks. Did you get your goodie bag? I think that is a bit ridiculous. And it's destructive. We know it's destructive. Let's leave it at that. So if you want to look this next article up, the headline is "Nothing Right About This Reality. 3 million people watched a delivery robot sidestep a homeless man in Miami." Yeah, the robot was delivering food, and it had to go around a dude who was passed out in the middle of the sidewalk there. But, you know, this article was written by somebody who was obviously a liberal, And, they said sidestep a homeless man. A viral video showing a food delivery robot carefully maneuvering around an unhoused man. Really? An unhoused man? These are drunks and drug addicts, okay? If you make yourself unhoused, why in the F should I bend over backwards to call you by a nice name and say, oh, look at that poor unhoused guy? No, you are a drug addict. You are an alcoholic. I was both of those things, all right? I take great offense to this making up excuses for people's bad behavior. Clean up. Fly straight. Do what's expected of you. I mean, holy crap. Is that really too much to ask? Is that really too much to ask? And then, on the flip side of that question, if you can't do that, then maybe the state should take care of you. And don't give me that crap about, oh, it's cheaper to send somebody to college than put them in jail. That's not a valid point. We do not need these people on the streets. We do not. They obviously are unwilling or unable to take care of themselves. Further on in the article, this liberal hippie said this wonderful saying: despite rising food and housing insecurity, thousands of food delivery robots currently operate in the United States. What does one have to do with the other? Things are getting expensive here, all right? These robots aren't helping that because obviously if you're having food delivery, you overpaid for your frickin' pizza to begin with, all right? You overpaid. It's probably going to be cold, quite possibly wrong. Yeah, I know. People around the country like Mandami are trying to ew, you're going to have to refund all their money. It's just ridiculous. And it really is ridiculous. We never had a problem getting food delivered here other than the fact that it was going to be from a pizza place. And I was fine with that. Most pizza places responded by having more offerings, whatever. But look that up. Nothing right about this reality. It is food robots having to go around passed out people in the streets. That is dystopian like nothing else. So right now there's this guy, Eric Schmidt, he's a senator, and he's proposing the Protect America Act that will punish sanctuary cities. And I think it's about time we do that. Allowing cities to simply not turn over criminal illegals is wrong. We don't need people in this country who commit offenses like, inappropriate touching or DUIs or even shoplifting. We don't need more people here that are criminals. Get them out of here, and then let's spend the money putting the people in prison who need to be in prison. It's ridiculous. Eric Schmidt is Republican from Missouri. He also wants to go after corrupt NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, because that is one of the things that happens is they give these charities money, and then the money just sort of vanishes. It goes wherever, and the problem doesn't get solved. I think we've kind of proven that 7-8 times out of 10, these charities do not accomplish their goals. All right. I understand sometimes those goals are hard to accomplish, but when you spend all that money on homelessness in California and the numbers just keep going up, it's kind of ridiculous. But they do need to start holding back funding to these cities. It's only right. Look, we need to have a federal government to look at federal issues. In other words, the issues of the United States, like our border and our overall defense. And if states don't want to play ball with that, then something needs to be done. That's just it. And it's that simple. If you catch somebody who's illegal here, you're going to turn them over to ICE. You know what that does? That tells people who are here illegally, look, act right. If you act right, you shouldn't have a problem. But if you're going to go out and get drunk and then drive your truck through a red light and the police pull you over, boom, you're gone. Good luck. Maybe you could sneak back in. Lots of them do. Like in New York, they ignored an ICE detainer and a federal criminal warrant. The federal criminal warrant was for sneaking back into the country, but they ignored both the detainer and the warrant. And this guy, Miguel Mora, right? Back in 2011, he was put in jail for rape, strangulation, assault, forcible touching, burglary, and disorderly conduct. In 2012, he was convicted of burglary and sentenced to 42 months in prison with 10 years of post-release supervision. Okay? I said, we need to remove this guy. They got him out, but he came back in. That's why he has the warrant. Then they released him repeatedly in 2023 and in 2024 for grand larceny, false personage, whichever that is, I probably using a fake ID, drug possession. They let him out again. They had him in custody. A federal criminal warrant was issued. He was arrested in January on drug and larceny charges, followed by a release. So as early as last month, they let him out. New York just let him back out on the streets because, all he did was what? Violate all of his parole conditions? All he did was try to steal money? All he did was possess drugs? No. Turn him over. He's out of the country. But these are the kinds of things that they are just rampantly doing in these cities and states. They don't want to charge criminals. And they don't want to deport people. They want to keep them around for the census because it helps their numbers. So we're going to end this with something maybe I haven't talked about in a while, but is very important to me. Decoupling from China. China and all of its friends are all assholes. China is not really friendly with anybody who has good intentions. I think we've proven that. Now China wants to decouple. China wants to sit as the top dog, so they no longer want to do our manufacturing, and they no longer want to purchase from us. I'm sure they'll continue to steal our secrets and steal whatever they can steal from us, but they don't want to buy anything anymore. Great. Made in America's, baby. Let's do it. Let's roll it out. Canada, the United States, Central America, South America. Let's get all of these countries on board. Let's start building our shit over here, where we don't need to have as much shipping. How about that? Let's get that dirty crude out of the ocean. Let's start getting everything as close by as possible. Let's do it. It's not going to be easy. We're going to lose all of our cheap shit. That's for sure. But I'll tell you something. Armstrong and Getty, 7:90 a.m. They're on in the mornings, like 8 to 10. They got it's earlier than that, but they got a podcast too. Just look up Armstrong and Getty. They made a great point. You know, you go to somewhere like the dollar store and you buy one of those cheap pencil sharpeners and it doesn't sharpen the pencil. And the pencils that you buy break easily and they don't feel very good. They don't write very well, but they're only $1. You know, $1 for a pencil sharpener and $1 for 10 pencils. One of them mentioned, how about spending $1 per pencil? He got pencils made in Germany. They work great. They feel good. You know how he sharpens them? With one of those hand crank ones. You remember those from school? You put the pencil in and you crank it? Yeah, I've got one out in the garage, you know. I believe one of them, Armstrong or Getty, said that he never felt richer than the day he installed one of those. But it was $20. But that's going to last you a lifetime. We're going to need to, and I think this is really good. We are going to move away from consuming disposables, things that you buy and they fall apart or they rip, they tear, they end up in landfills. We're going to start buying things made out of, like, you know, good plastic and American steel, and they last a lifetime. I'll tell you right now, I know I could go over to my parents' house right now and they've had a pencil sharpener in their garage for my entire life, which is 50-something years now. I bet you that thing sharpens a pencil like nobody's business. So we're going to have to make adjustments, but we need to get away from them. We don't need to be in bed with people who want to ship weapons to North Korea and to Iran and are in bed with Russia. F them. F them. We don't need to be manufacturing there. I know it is going to be painful. That has been the hallmark of the Trump administration this time around, so far. is we're doing some things that are painful. I'll include even the ICE enforcement in various portions of the country. It has been painful, but that's because the sanctuary cities don't want to work with them. They don't want to help them with intel and support and all of that. We need to rebuild America to what it used to be, okay? Mostly self-sufficient. What we don't need to build it into is a xenophobic, homophobic country where a woman's rights are dictated by the state. Yeah, I said that part because I'm tired of the abortion issue. Abortion should just be legal. Drop it. Now the left has no real argument to pull women over. Republicans, drop your fucking nonsense. Let's get to work. Let's fix this country. This is the best country on the planet. We have the best system on the planet. Is it great? Is it perfect? Certainly not perfect, but it beats the shit out of the way other people do things, with the small exceptions here and there. You know, there might be a country here or there that might be a little bit nicer or a little bit more helpful. But I'll tell you this, we can't be helpful as long as there's fraud. So we need to jump out of our echo chambers. We need to look at what is being served to us and figure out where we really stand. And then have the conviction to stand with those convictions and say, I'm not going to vote for this shit anymore. I can't. If you can't vote for the Republicans, then don't even worry about voting for the Democrats. Just don't vote. Just say, you know what? I don't like the Republicans, so I'm not going to give them my vote. I don't like the Democrats, so I'm not going to give them their vote. Maybe we move the needle enough that they move their needle. Start getting back to the center, baby. I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party, and so are you. Love one another. Keep on grinding. And you know, like I always say, just because I love to do it, dance it out.